In Springfield, everyone knows that as the eldest daughter of the Johnson family, I am deeply in love with that poor guy, Lucas, to elevate his social status. I spent a fortune of billions, pushing him into the position of a rising entrepreneur. Because he once said he didn't want to get married too early, I endured the pressure and remained single until I was 40. Unexpectedly, on my 41st birthday, Lucas casually said to me, "Emily, I'm getting married next month and you must come to the wedding." I trembled all over, staring at him in shock. Lucas had already turned away, chatting and laughing with others. Bitter tears fell heavily on my heart. I called him with a choked voice, asking, "You said you wanted to marry me. Does that still count? Mr. Lucas, Miss Johnson has waited for you for 20 years. Aren't you afraid she'll be disappointed and leave when you turn around and marry someone else?" As soon as Lucas announced his engagement, someone couldn't help but ask loudly. I froze, not daring to turn and look at Lucas's expression, but quietly strained to hear, wondering if he would regret losing me for marrying someone else, even for just a moment. Lucas was silent for a few seconds. My heart was racing, my palms were sweating, and I felt dizzy. I couldn't even hear what the person on the other end of the phone was saying, just responding absent-mindedly with At that moment, Lucas suddenly chuckled. He said firmly that Emily wouldn't leave me. She can't bear to leave, nor can she. Just as someone was eager to ask more, Lucas quickly changed the topic. I felt extremely uncomfortable, as if I had been thrown harshly into the sea, the bitter taste tightly enveloping me. I desperately needed to breathe some fresh air. I hung up the phone and walked out of the banquet hall. Just as I stopped in front of a cluster of blooming hydrangeas, I heard a sweet female voice call out, "Miss Johnson, I'm really sorry. I didn't expect Lucas to be in such a hurry to announce the marriage news at your birthday party, but it's better to know early so you can prepare sooner. Otherwise, it would be quite inauspicious to have an unpleasant disturbance on such a joyous day." Sophia wore a smug smile, looking as if she had already secured victory. Seeing me look at her, she intentionally raised her middle finger, making sure I noticed the large diamond on her hand. I tightened my gaze and recognized that high-purity diamond. It was the one I bought at the auction a few days ago when Lucas raised his paddle. At that time, I thought he intended to propose to me, and I was overjoyed. Little did I expect that this ring was actually for another woman. With my money, my long-suppressed anger, resentment, and hatred erupted all at once, and I unhesitatingly grabbed Sophia's finger, trying to yank off that sparkling diamond ring. "What are you doing? Are you crazy? Let go, you ignored old woman." Sophia stomped her feet in anger and kicked my calf hard with her high heel. I staggered back in pain, and she lost her balance and fell to the ground. "Ouch, it hurts so much. My stomach," Sophia suddenly screamed loudly, dramatically covering her flat stomach and shouting continuously. Lucas hurried over, pale-faced and anxiously asked Sophia, "What happened?" "I'll take you to the hospital right away. Emily said I was a bad woman, unworthy of you, and told me to leave. She even threatened that if I didn't leave, she would deal with me." "Lucas, I'm really scared. Let's break up. I don't want her to have the chance to hurt you." Sophia started crying, and her delicate face looked especially pitiful. Lucas glared at me in anger. Just as I was about to explain, Lucas suddenly slapped me hard, then kicked my stomach, knocking me to the ground. He glared at me angrily. "Emily, if anything happens to the baby in Sophia's belly, I won't let you off the hook." Sophia snuggled in Lucas's arms, giving me a provocative and triumphant smile. I felt a chill in my heart. Sophia is putting on an act, but after being kicked and beaten, my emotions are genuinely agitated, and my old illness has flared up. I was so anxious I was sweating. My hands were shaking badly. I tried to reach out to Lucas for help with my medicine, but he didn't even look at me, quickly picking up Sophia and leaving. My vision gradually blurred. Breathing became difficult, and I felt like something was stuck in my throat. I struggled to crawl on the ground, forcing out a few words, "Help, help me." I always carry medicine, but the box fell into the sewer when I fell. After Lucas left, the surroundings fell silent. I didn't want to die. A strong will to survive pushed me to slowly crawl toward the side of the sewer. A foul smell wafted up from below, and I couldn't help but gag. From childhood to now, I have lived a life of comfort. I have never been this helpless. Tears streamed down my face as I cried. My vision blurred. I felt around on the ground with my lips and finally found the medicine box. I used my teeth to open it, and after much effort, I got a pill on my tongue. Just as I was about to swallow it, suddenly, a malicious voice came from above. "You old woman, trying to compete with Sophia for a man you think you're worthy. My hair was suddenly yanked, and my head was violently slammed against the ground by that force. The impact broke my forehead, and blood flowed down my nose into my mouth. I endured the pain and swallowed the pill with the blood. I heard a rustling sound in my ears. Suddenly, it started to rain, and the person who hit me cursed his bad luck and ran away. I struggled to lift my head and looked over. That figure seemed familiar, like Lucas's newly hired secretary, Sophia's good friend. Does she think that just because I like Lucas, I won't take action against his people even if I'm wronged? I, Emily, am only gentle towards Lucas. But now, I have decided to withdraw this special feeling. After getting soaked in the rain, and with my old illness relapsing, I came home and immediately developed a high fever, lying in bed for 3 whole days. Once I became a little more coherent, the first thing I did was fire Lucas's new secretary to my surprise, right after the order was given. Lucas, who had been missing for 3 days, suddenly appeared in a rage. He questioned Emily. "How long do you plan to keep this up? Sophia is the one I want to marry. If you have a problem, come at me. Why do you keep hurting her?" I was taken aback. No matter what decision I made before, Lucas always supported me first. This time, however, he strongly opposed. Is it because I've targeted someone around Sophia? Is Sophia really that important to him? So what do my 20 years of dedication and companionship count for? A wave of immense sadness washed over me, and I was too choked up to speak. Lucas sighed, sat on the edge of the bed, took my hand and said, "Emily, I'm sorry. I was too impulsive just now. After Sophia fell the day before yesterday, the doctor said her pregnancy was unstable and that she needed to rest well. But you dismissed her best friend, and she was upset, causing her stomach to hurt again. Someone is deliberately confusing right and wrong." However, Lucas surprisingly believed it easily. I can't tell whether I feel more disappointment or sadness. I'm too exhausted to say much more. I withdrew my hand and said, "I have shares in Lucas Group. I'm the second largest shareholder after you, so I have the right to make decisions regarding personnel, right?" "Yes." I vaguely sensed a hint of something unusual in Lucas's gaze. His response sounded somewhat unwilling. I really couldn't be bothered to ponder these things. I closed my eyes and said, "Let me be alone for a while." "All right, then you rest first. By the way," Lucas hesitated for a moment and then said, "Emily, I remember you used to have a wedding dress custom-made at a private studio. Could you introduce Sophia there as well? She said she didn't want to wear the same wedding dress as others. She wanted something unique." These words cut through my heart like a knife. Lucas forgot that I had once eagerly told him I designed a special wedding dress that I wanted to show him. Instead, he seriously criticized me, saying, "Emily, if you choose to be with me, you have to change your habit of spending money. Otherwise, we might not be able to continue because of our differing views." I was a bit scared and vowed to be frugal from then on, so I stopped wearing those luxury brands and put away all my jewelry. I went barefaced, trying hard to become the person Lucas liked. But later I realized he didn't dislike beautiful and expensive things. He just didn't like me that way. Tears flowed down, wetting my temples. I was so exhausted that I didn't have the strength to say another word. I struggled to open the bedside table with my fingers, took out a business card, and threw it to him. After doing all this, I felt dizzy and heavily lay back down on the bed. Lucas didn't even glance at me, excitedly calling Sophia to brag. Sophia said something, and Lucas quickly walked back to my bedside. "Sophia is worried that he won't give her face and wants you to accompany her." I opened my mouth but felt something was off, and my heart felt heavy. Without waiting for me to say anything, Lucas grabbed me and dragged me out. The night wind was very cold, and I was shivering. Lucas finally noticed that I was cold. He took off his coat and gently draped it over my shoulders. The familiar scent of sea salt surrounded me instantly, as if I was enveloped in his warm embrace. I couldn't help but recall the night I first met Lucas. I stumbled along the street, carrying the scars left from being bullied. Although I am the eldest daughter of the Johnson family, no one has cared for me since I was young, and no one has supported me. My privileged background has instead become a burden, making me feel like an outsider who is constantly bullied and excluded. I have tried to resist and sought help from others, but my parents were too busy enjoying themselves to even have the patience to listen to me. Teachers are more willing to believe others. After all, in their eyes, I am just that young lady, and it's already good enough that I don't bully others. During that time, I was living in a daze, curled up in a corner like a timid animal, terrified by the slightest noise. Lucas was the first person to extend a warm hand to me, to help me. Since then, I have been determined to like him, wanting wholeheartedly to build a harbor of love with him, to calm my restless heart. For this goal, I am willing to wait for 20 years. I understand that many people talk about me behind my back, saying I curry favor with others, calling me foolish and shameless. But I don't care about any of that. I just hope Lucas will agree to give me a home. However, in the end, he still chose to hold someone else's hand. If I can't wait, then let it be. I took off Lucas's coat and casually threw it on the ground. Lucas looked at me in surprise, and I got directly into the car. Let's go. Didn't Sophia say she was waiting for us? Emily, thank you. I have always known that you are the one who cares the most and thinks of others the best. Lucas had a gentle smile on his face and sincerely praised me a few times. In the past, I would always fall for this kind of thing, muddle-headedly agreeing to all his subsequent requests. But today I felt uncomfortable listening, so I simply closed my eyes and said, "I'm dizzy, call me when you need me." Lucas stopped talking. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the wedding dress studio. Sophia was already inside, arguing with the designer. Lucas was originally going to help me out of the car, but seeing this situation, he immediately withdrew his hand and rushed in, afraid that Sophia would be wronged. I looked at my empty palm, gave a wry smile, and slowly got out of the car by myself. As soon as I entered the studio, both Lucas and the designer looked at me. The designer said helplessly, "Miss Johnson, I've already told them that this wedding dress was designed for you, custom made, and it's not for sale or trying on, but this lady insists on trying it on." Lucas gave the designer an unhappy glance and firmly said to me, "Emily, Sophia is very picky. It's rare for her to like something, just let her have it." Then Sophia smiled and said, "Emily, you probably won't need this wedding dress in the future. Keeping it is a waste, so why not give it to me?" Watching the two of them play off each other, I was so angry my temples were throbbing. Just as I was about to firmly refuse, my phone suddenly received a message. Just as I was looking down at my messages, Lucas forcibly shoved the wedding dress to Sophia. Sophia looked at it and smiled, saying it was fine hanging up, but once taken down, it was already out of style. "This old thing just takes up space. Emily, let me help you get rid of it." After saying that, she picked up the scissors and cut the wedding dress. I was anxious and heartbroken, quickly rushing forward to grab it. Just then, Sophia suddenly let out a cry. The sharp tip of the scissors accidentally cut Sophia's palm. Sophia cried, "Emily, did you just try to hurt me, Lucas? I'm scared. I don't want to marry you anymore. Let me go." "Emily, how long are you going to make a scene? I've already told you that I will live with Sophia and won't abandon you. Why are you still causing a fuss? Don't you want me to be happy? Don't you want to see me happy? Why are you speaking so harshly? Fortunately, I never married you. You should be single for the rest of your life." The words of a once deeply loved person pierced my heart like a sharp ice blade. I almost couldn't stand, and my lips kept trembling. "Can you say that again? No matter how many times I say it, Emily, you need to apologize to Sophia right now. If not, I won't care about you anymore. With your peculiar personality, it will be difficult to find a suitable partner, and you may end up living an unsatisfactory life in the future." At that moment, I seemed to understand something. Lucas has been dragging his feet on marriage. He clearly enjoys my love but always keeps his distance from me. It turns out he has been draining me all along. He has turned me into an older single woman and ruined my reputation, leaving me with no support but him. He painted a cage with his own hands, trapping me inside. They are just waiting for me to die so they can freely drain my flesh and blood. A chill ran from my feet straight to the top of my head. At that moment, I was especially grateful that I made that call when I heard Lucas was getting married. But when Lucas and Sophia saw me like this, they thought I had resigned myself and compromised. They unceremoniously assigned me tasks. The wedding car must be decorated with the finest crushed bricks, and the wedding house has to be a lakeside villa, registered under Sophia's name. I am fully responsible for the wedding banquet and must invite all the prominent figures in Springfield. In the end, they even made me sign a will, stipulating that all my assets would go to Lucas after my death. "You really dare to ask for so much? Don't you worry about being too greedy and breaking your back?" I was so furious that I couldn't help but retort sarcastically. Sophia looked at me coldly and said, "Emily, you'd better think carefully. Right now, you are the one asking us to take care of your future. If you continue to speak rudely, I will make sure Lucas stops taking care of you. Lucas probably hasn't received all the benefits from me yet. and he's worried I might turn against him. Her expression softened, and she gently said to me, "Emily, don't misunderstand. I'm not scheming against you. We've known each other for over 20 years. Although we're not family, we're closer than family. You should hand over your belongings to me. That's the safest and most reliable way." The wedding dress designer exclaimed in surprise. To put such a self-serving thing in such grand terms, you really have a way with words. The designer said to me, "Miss Johnson, your financial power gives you many options. Don't let the current situation blind you." I thanked her for her suggestion, but after some thought, I still agreed to all the demands made by Lucas and Sophia. Sophia was beaming with joy. Lucas also assured me that from that moment until the wedding, he would always be by my side, making me feel warm. However, that night, Lucas did not come home with me. I received a video from Sophia on my phone, showing her and Lucas being very intimate in my office. She seemed to feel that wasn't enough, as every day leading up to the wedding, she would send me similar videos. The locations varied. Sometimes it was in the luxury car I gave to Lucas, sometimes in my villa, and even once in the wilderness. What I found hardest to accept was that she was wearing my repaired custom wedding dress, and Lucas had gotten it dirty. Although I was determined to let go, I was still so angry that it hurt my chest, and I ended up in the hospital. Sophia came to my hospital bed again, playing around with Lucas while I was in a daze. She even recorded the whole process and sent it to me. I quietly saved the things and said nothing, as if I had already accepted reality. Finally, the day of Sophia and Lucas's wedding arrived. The celebrities of Springfield were all invited, and even the well-known media were broadcasting live. Sophia wore an exquisite handmade wedding dress, looking proud and enjoying the attention of the crowd. When tossing the bridal bouquet, she specifically called me to the front, saying, "Emily, you poor thing, you'll never get to experience being a bride in this lifetime." I suggested that everyone give the bouquet to Emily, as if she were marrying the flowers today. His question made me feel utterly embarrassed in front of everyone. I looked at Lucas in shock, unable to believe he would allow Sophia to act so recklessly and make me feel so humiliated. But Lucas picked up the microphone and said, "Emily, why don't you thank Sophia for considering you?" Sophia laughed first, and soon everyone else joined in. They stared at me as if I were a clown, waiting for me to make a fool of myself. Sophia threw the bouquet towards me. Just as I was about to dodge, a hand suddenly reached out from the side and caught the flowers, then threw them back at Sophia. The bouquet hit Sophia in the face, and the sharp thorns scratched the corner of her eye, causing her to scream in pain. Lucas ignored Sophia and instead focused on the man who had suddenly appeared, asking warily, "Who are you?" Someone ignored him and directly took my hand, seriously putting a huge diamond ring on my finger. Guests present exclaimed in surprise, "Isn't that the heart of diamond that was sold for a high price at the auction overseas a few days ago?" I heard it was bought by a mysterious wealthy person. Lucas's facial muscles twitched slightly as he forced a smile and said, "Emily, are you so eager to get married that you're willing to find a man to pretend? If you degrade yourself like this, it would make me sad. Where is the security? Come quickly and remove the troublemakers from here." As soon as Lucas finished speaking, a group of men in black suddenly appeared. They walked straight toward him and Sophia, forcibly pulling them down. Then, another team began to rearrange the scene. The already luxurious wedding banquet instantly became even more extravagant and dazzling. Once the scene was redecorated, a handsome man with striking mixed features knelt before me and said, "Miss Johnson, will you marry me? I present Blue Heart Mining as a dowry to propose to you." The scene suddenly fell silent. Blue Heart Mining, that's the largest mining company in the world. Even the least informed person knows about Blue Heart Mining. The guests' expressions suddenly became serious. Lucas and Sophia were taken aback at first. Then Sophia lost control of her emotions and pointed at me, saying, "This is impossible. Emily is older and of average looks. No one would pursue her. How could a mysterious millionaire propose to her?" The more Sophia spoke, the more she felt she had found the truth, sneering as she said, "Emily, you're being too foolish. Even if you want to put on a show at my wedding with Lucas, you shouldn't just find someone to act, right? Look at his shifty eyes. He doesn't have the demeanor of a wealthy person at all. Ha! Could he be a male model coming out of that club? Who knows what she's been through? Emily, you need to be more careful and not accidentally get into trouble." "Oh dear, you don't look well lately. You aren't sick, are you?" Sophia gasped in surprise, covering her mouth and taking a step back with some concern. Lucas's expression also turned serious. He looked at me and said, "Emily, if you don't want to bless me, I won't force you." Then he said, "Don't hurt each other like this. Don't make me hate you or resent you. Lucas really understands me and knows where my weaknesses lie." As soon as he speaks, he hits my sore spot directly. Fortunately, by the time he decided to marry someone else, my feelings for him had gradually faded. I no longer feel uneasy from just a glance from him, nor do I compromise myself to please him. I looked down at the wedding ring on my hand and said firmly, "I won't leave." "Emily." Lucas raised his voice, stepping forward to try to grab me and pull me out. But just as his hand was about to touch me, it recoiled as if electrocuted. He seemed worried that I really carried the virus. I laughed. I laughed so hard that tears streamed down my face. "Lucas, I've liked you for so long. I've really misjudged the person and thought the wrong things." I turned my head away from him, reached out to the man who was still kneeling and proposing. "Max." "I do." Max's handsome face immediately broke into a joyful smile. He tightly grasped my hand and stood up. "Shall we hold the wedding right now? I have already prepared the wedding dress." As soon as he finished speaking, two people walked in carrying an exquisite wedding dress. "Isn't this the dream wedding dress that took the world-renowned designer 2 years to complete? This can't be bought with money. Could he really be a mysterious billionaire?" Both Lucas and Sophia clearly find it hard to believe this fact. Lucas's face turns pale. Sophia suddenly clutches her stomach and painfully says, "It hurts. Lucas, I feel unwell." Lucas stared at me for a long time, then said, "The wedding ends here. Everyone can leave." But the guests still stood there. No one left. Lucas asked the officiant in charge of the wedding proceedings to remove all the decorations, but no one paid him any attention. Lucas was furious and said, "With such poor service, don't expect me to pay for the remaining costs." The officiant coldly replied, "Mr. Lucas, it was Miss Johnson who placed the order. If you want to enjoy the service, you have to pay for the customized package first." Hearing this, Lucas trembled with anger. He stared at me with red eyes and said, "Emily, no wonder you agreed so readily to handle the wedding banquet. You had planned this all along to embarrass me today." He gritted his teeth and said, "I'll remember this. Emily, I will not forgive you unless someone comes and drives the troublemakers away. There must be nothing unclean at my wedding." Max said coldly. Immediately, two tall men in black quickly stepped forward, one grabbing Lucas and the other seizing Sophia, effortlessly taking them away. The remaining men in black looked around, and the guests forced smiles, continuously flattering me. Even my being single until 40 for Lucas has become a sign of foresight. Knowing that the best is yet to come, I smiled lightly and suddenly felt that giving up Lucas was a good choice. The wedding was particularly grand, with the media live streaming it and discussions online heating up. But Max and I knew in our hearts that all of this was fake. It was just a transaction. 2 years ago, Lucas accidentally got involved in a gray market deal abroad, which not only put Lucas' group in crisis, but also almost landed him in jail. He hurriedly sought my help, and I steeled myself to negotiate in person. To my surprise, the boss on the other side turned out to be Max. During our negotiation, Max's enemies suddenly attacked, and I took a bullet for him. He said he wanted to repay my life-saving grace and was willing to do anything for me. I only had Lucas on my mind, so I declined his kindness, asking him not to involve Lucas. Max agreed, but he told me he would remember my life-saving grace and return the favor when I needed it. Later, Lucas told me he was getting married, and I was stunned, feeling completely betrayed and abandoned. I instinctively called Max and asked if he still meant what he said about marrying me, but I regretted it right after I asked. At that time, I still hadn't given up on Lucas and was thinking about winning him back. I quickly hung up the phone. Unexpectedly, Lucas repeatedly hurt my feelings. He even made me arrange a wedding for him and Sophia. At that moment, my heart completely sank. I pretended to agree obediently, then turned around and contacted Max to help me put on a show. Doesn't Lucas always think I can't find someone to marry, believing that I'm reliant only on him? Then I'll let him see for himself that as long as I want to, I can find a man who is 100 times better than him. It was really foolish of me to love him before. Max performed even better than I expected. He even helped me complete the entire process, making me feel like I was truly marrying the one I loved. Unfortunately, fake is still fake. In the end, I still couldn't have a home of my own. In the car, we gradually walked further away, and there were hardly any people around. I smiled at him and said, "Our debts are settled. You don't owe me anything anymore." Emily, you can't just let it go like this, right? We need to punish that man. Take me along. It will be more effective. Max insisted on continuing the act. I guess he just wanted to join in the fun, but having him there did indeed provoke Lucas more. So I agreed to take him back to the villa. As expected, Lucas was already waiting in front of my villa. He was pacing back and forth, looking very anxious. When he saw me get out of the car, he immediately walked over quickly and said, "Emily, if you don't agree to me marrying someone else, you can just tell me directly. Why go behind my back with these little tricks? What did I do? His methods are too many. I can't figure out what he's angry about. Are you still playing dumb?" The company manager just called me, saying that many partners have stopped cooperating with Lucas Group. Emily, you also have shares in Lucas Group. What benefit do you get if the business fails? You need to contact the clients quickly and bring them back. While he was talking, he forcefully pulled me out of the car to make a phone call. His grip was too strong, and my wrist hurt badly, making me involuntarily take a deep breath. Behind us, Max quickly reached out and accurately grabbed Lucas's arm. Lucas immediately cried out in pain, as if his hand had been severed. The force pulling me disappeared as well. With a push and a toss, Lucas fell clumsily to the ground. If you secretly harm me, I won't let you get away with it," Lucas said angrily. Max glanced at him disdainfully, got out of the car, and kicked him hard, pushing him away, telling him not to cause trouble here. Then he turned to Emily and gently said, "Emily, the person blocking the way has been dealt with. Come, let me help you out of the car." Max politely extended his hand. I saw Lucas's face turn ugly, as if he was very surprised. I shook my head. Lucas limped up to me and said anxiously, "Emily, this man is too fierce. You should leave him quickly." "I'll answer. How did I see it before? I didn't even realize you were this incompetent." Lucas was furious. I patiently told him that the partners canceled their cooperation one after another, and it had nothing to do with me. They simply wisely saw that I was no longer willing to be used by you, so they withdrew in time. "Lucas, haven't you realized it yet? The reason you can sit in the CEO position and have some face is not because of yourself, but because of my support. Emily, Lucas is both arrogant and insecure, especially unable to tolerate others saying he relies on women." My words directly exposed his true situation. His body swayed, almost unable to stand, and he shouted angrily, "Emily, even if you kneel down and beg me in the future, offering me the Johnson family's assets, I will never forgive you." After saying that, Lucas turned and left in a fit of rage. I watched his back and said, "By the way, I have already sold all my shares in Lucas Group, and you can figure out how to deal with the losses yourself. Don't come to me for help. I will never bow down and beg you," Lucas said word by word. That night, he knelt in front of my villa for the whole night. The Lucas Group went bankrupt in less than half a day, and the employees left one after another, leaving him with a mess to clean up. He was in a state of panic and couldn't solve it at all, so he had to come to me for help. To get me to agree, Lucas really went all out. He first brought a bucket of ice water and poured it over himself. Then, while shivering, he started singing his favorite song. Every line was filled with tremors. After finishing the song, he began reminiscing about the happy times we had over the past 20 years. But the more he spoke, the quieter he became, as he realized that those touching and beautiful memories were actually all bought with my time, money, and even my selflessness. He discovered that he had never done anything worth mentioning for me. Lucas changed the subject again. "Emily, people say you only realize what's most precious after you've lost it. Watching you put on your wedding dress, about to marry someone else, my heart aches like it's being cut by a knife." At that moment, I finally understood that the person I love the most is you. I shouldn't have been deceived by Sophia. I actually have no feelings for her. I married her just for the child in her womb. I thought of you getting older and unable to have children, but someone from the Johnson family has to inherit. I plan to divorce as soon as Sophia has the baby and then leave the child in your care, so we can become a happy family of 3. Emily, it's all my fault for not clarifying things with you sooner, which led to your misunderstanding. Please give me another chance. I really can't live without you. You have long become a part of my life, deeply integrated into my very being. Emily, please don't be so cold to me." Lucas live-streamed his kneeling down, begging me to change my mind with a drone. For the past 20 years, my almost crazy love for Lucas has become well known in Springfield. Therefore, when netizens saw him humbly admitting his mistakes and trying to win me back, everyone sided with him. Some patiently advised me not to be too stubborn, or I would end up regretting it myself. Others directly said that I was too old to still be stirring things up, that I couldn't have children, and yet wouldn't let Lucas have descendants, which was really too much. They even said my love for Lucas was fake, that I had monopolized him for 20 years, and now that he was no longer young and handsome, I wanted to dump him for someone else. I looked down and wasn't angry at all. On the contrary, Max was very indignant on my behalf. He had his people find out the users corresponding to each comment and directly published it online. It turns out those people are part of a paid online team that manipulates public opinion. They have participated in countless incidents of online bullying. Lucas is their behind-the-scenes boss. Max directly sued Lucas. Lucas was arrested by the police for suspected cybersecurity crimes. He originally wanted to kneel and apologize to salvage the situation, but it turned into a legal education lesson. The good image he had built over the years was severely damaged as a result. Unexpectedly, when Lucas was taken away, Sophia rushed over angrily. She couldn't enter the villa and started loudly scolding me outside. She said many hurtful things. Later, she simply lay on the ground holding her stomach. "Emily, if you don't release Lucas immediately and get money to save Lucas Group, I won't leave." She was extremely agitated, started bleeding from her lower body. Her skirt soaked in blood, her face pale, and she was sweating profusely, but she still gritted her teeth and held on. Max frowned and asked, "Emily, do you want me to get someone to deal with her?" He made a throat-cutting gesture. I was startled. It shouldn't be that serious. Max smiled and said, "I always follow the rules when I do things. I won't act recklessly. What I mean is, this woman seems a bit out of her mind. If we send her to work in the mines, she'll be so exhausted that she won't have the energy to think nonsense anymore." "All right, but first let her take a look at this." I walked up to Sophia. Her eyes held both hatred and a sense of pride. She probably thinks I've already given up. She was taken aback for a moment, her eyes filled with surprise. "You seem to have changed quite a bit." I smiled and asked, "Really, actually, this is my original appearance, wearing well-fitted clothes made of high-quality, smooth fabric, with understated yet luxurious accessories. In the past, to be worthy of Lucas, I forced myself to become a lower version of myself. Looking back now, it's truly laughable, lamentable, and sad. Actually, Sophia is very much like me. However, she is still unaware that Lucas has his eyes on her." I gently raised my hand, opened the information Max had found, and handed it to Sophia. Sophia asked warily, "What are you trying to do?" "Emily, I want to make it clear. I won't be bought by you, you scheming person. As long as I'm here, you can forget about hurting Lucas." I loosened my grip, and the documents and photos scattered down onto Sophia's face. The first thing Sophia saw were several intimate photos of Lucas with a woman. The woman was Sophia's best friend and someone very close to her. Sophia's eyes widened. Her breathing became rapid, and her emotions were even more agitated than before. She shouted, "Don't think you can fool me with manipulated photos." Shaking, she picked up the scattered documents one by one to examine them. As she flipped through them, her emotions became increasingly uncontrollable. In the end, Sophia couldn't help it and let out a gasp, spitting out a mouthful of blood. I stood above watching her, feeling both sympathy and a deep sense of reflection. She thought she was the winner, but like me, she was just another victim used by Lucas. Lucas doesn't love any woman, he only cares about money and status. He got Sophia pregnant and led the charge against me. He planned to stir up a conflict between Sophia and me after she gave birth, so we would both be hurt. At that time, he would pretend to be on my side, divorce Sophia, and kick her out. In a moment of weakness, I agreed to make a will leaving all of Johnson's family's assets to him. Without Lucas, Sophia would definitely lose control and vent all her grievances on me. Once the will takes effect, she will follow Lucas's orders and come at me with a knife. Sophia, covered in blood and panicking, pretended to escape with Lucas, but he actually had her best friend trick her into the mountains to strangle her. In the end, Lucas married Sophia's good friend. With leverage over her, this wife not only dared not demand any assets but also obeyed him completely. He had descendants, wealth, and status, and had become a clear winner in life. This arrangement is truly flawless in its consideration. When I first saw the documents Max presented, I was shocked. If I hadn't met Max and made that call to propose marriage, things might have really gone according to Lucas's plan. I used to be like someone blindfolded and deafened, completely trusting Lucas. Fortunately, life is not as fixed as a script. I had the chance to make different choices and head towards a different ending. You must know some of Lucas's secrets. If you are willing to testify against him, I guarantee your child will grow up safe and healthy." Sophia's lips trembled slightly. Within just a few minutes, her cheeks became sunken, her eyes bulged, and she looked as haggard as a ghost. She said weakly, "I can help you, but you know what you've done to me. I won't let you off easily." Sophia was silent for a moment, then forced a smile and said, "Okay. Emily, I trust you. You have more conscience than Lucas." She stumbled to her feet and wobbled out. After going upstairs, I picked up the binoculars to look outside. On the street, Sophia's best friend was waiting for her. As soon as she saw Sophia, she rushed over and asked anxiously about something. Sophia answered briefly and then took a taxi to the police station. The next day, I heard that Lucas was reported for tax evasion by his wife, Sophia, and he was also suspected of involvement in illegal overseas transactions due to the severity of the case. If convicted, he could face life imprisonment. Lucas began desperately seeking connections, trying to find someone to help him out, but those connections of his were all gained by stepping on me. If I refused to help him, he is worthless. No one would care about him at all. Lucas deeply realized that without Emily by his side, he himself was not even a decent person. He cried and begged in the detention center, constantly bowing his head in repentance, trying to make me change my mind. I just smiled faintly and said, "I don't deal with troublesome matters, so don't come to me with issues about unreliable people in the future." Lucas couldn't accept the news and lost control of his emotions. Unfortunately, he was soon exposed for faking madness, adding another charge and being sent to the serious criminal section. His remaining life was filled with violence and humiliation. He used to bully and insult me, but later, during my most difficult times, he appeared like a savior. Now, Sophia has been assigned to work in the mines. However, that mine has already been bought by me, and it is no longer a place that exploits people. Now, the workers only need to work 2 hours a day and can rest for 3 days every 5 days. She has lost weight, but her spirit is good, and she looks more resilient. I helped find a loving family to adopt her child. If Sophia can atone for her mistakes, she will have a chance to reunite with her child in the future. As for her best friend, she remained loyal to Lucas, going to great lengths to save him, even at the cost of her own life. In the end, she wore herself down to the point of no return, passing away even before Lucas. When Lucas heard of her death, he didn't shed a single tear. Instead, he said she was useless for not helping him fare better in prison. Sophia quietly took out money to bury her former best friend, bringing closure to the past. Before returning to the mine, she specifically came to see me. She saw that I was more beautiful and younger than before, full of spirit, and was stunned for a moment, then said, "Emily, I really envy you." Then she added, "Emily, don't easily trust men." I focused on painting the oil painting in front of me, ignoring her. However, after Sophia left, my brush paused for a moment. I definitely won't love the men of this world again. When my heart was shattered to the extreme, I suddenly realized that I was living in a cliché of a tragic romance novel. Whether it was Lucas or Max, they were both outsiders, here just to toy with my feelings. They wanted to see how a proud and beautiful rich girl gradually lost herself, ultimately becoming their servant. The worse I am, the higher their task scores go. Ha, men. I shook my head, shaking off those chaotic thoughts. I've made up my mind in this life. I will not only focus on myself and build my own career, but I will also change all women, encouraging them to fight and strive like wild wolves. No matter how much you love, never lose yourself for a man.